Last night, you dreamed about something you can't quite remember. Maybe you were being chased. Maybe you showed up somewhere important with no pants on. Your brain wrote, directed, and starred you in a story you never asked for. But the real reason it did that is far stranger than anything a dream dictionary or an app will tell you. For most of human history, nobody guessed at what dreams meant for fun. People survived because of them. Picture the version of you from 100,000 years ago. No bed, no roof, no lock on a door. Sleep, for that version of you, was the single most dangerous thing you did every day. You were unconscious, unarmed, blind in the dark for 8 straight hours. And still, somehow, your brain found the time and the energy to dream. Why would evolution spend resources on something as strange as dreaming, during the exact hours you were most vulnerable? In the year 2000, a Finnish cognitive scientist named Antti Revonsuo went looking for an answer. He studied thousands of recorded dream reports from people all over the world and noticed something nobody had said out loud quite so clearly before. Dreams are not random. They are disproportionately about threat, being chased, falling, drowning, attacked by something with teeth or claws. Revonsuo called this the threat simulation theory. His conclusion was simple, and it was unsettling. Dreaming was never your brain relaxing. It was your brain running drills. Think about that for a second. Every single night, while your body lay completely still and defenseless, your mind built a virtual predator and made you practice escaping it. That's not a glitch. That's training. You weren't the only species doing it either. In 2001, a neuroscientist at MIT named Matthew Wilson recorded the brain activity of rats while they slept after running through a maze filled with rewards and obstacles. The patterns firing in their hippocampus during sleep matched, almost exactly, the patterns that fired while they were awake and navigating danger and difficulty in real time. The rats were replaying the maze, rehearsing it, mentally walking the same path again with no body involved, just the dress rehearsal running on its own. If a rat's brain does that with a maze, what do you think a human brain does with an actual predator? This same pattern shows up across almost every mammal that cycles through REM sleep, not just rats, and not just you. Cats twitch through dream chases. Dogs paddle their legs mid-sleep, sprinting after something that isn't there. Even animals separated from humans by tens of millions of years of evolution still run the same basic software at night, rehearsing movement and danger while completely unconscious. That's not a coincidence shared by that many species by accident. That's a feature old enough to predate humanity itself, something your ancestors simply inherited and kept refining. Fast forward to 2015, and a different question pulled a neuroscientist named Jerome Siegel out of the lab and into the field. He wanted to know what sleep actually looked like before alarm clocks, electricity, and city noise rewired it completely. So he studied 3 hunter-gatherer societies still living largely the way humans lived for tens of thousands of years. The Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, the Tsimane of Bolivia. No artificial light, no screens, no scheduled bedtime. What he found broke a few comfortable assumptions. These groups didn't sleep more than people living in cities. Some of them slept less. They didn't crawl into bed the second the sun went down either. They stayed up around the fire, talking, telling stories, processing the day, long after dark had already fallen. And when their dreams were recorded, they weren't peaceful escapes from a hard day. They were full of tension. If sleep was already dangerous, and rest was already scarce, why would the brain spend that precious time simulating even more danger instead of something calm? Because calm doesn't need rehearsal. Danger does. Decades before Siegel ever set foot in Tanzania, 2 researchers named Calvin Hall and Robert van de Castle had already started proving Revonsuo's theory before he'd even asked the question. Starting in the 1960s, they collected thousands of dream reports from people across wildly different cultures and built a coding system to track exactly what content showed up, over and over, no matter where the dreamer lived. The results lined up almost perfectly across continents. Aggression, misfortune, being pursued, falling from somewhere high. People living in completely different languages, religions, climates, and centuries kept reporting strangely identical fears at night. That's the part that should actually stop you. Different food, different gods, different tools, same nightmares. There's a reason this rehearsal doesn't just stop at fear either. A sleep researcher named Rosalind Cartwright spent decades studying people going through some of the hardest periods of their lives, divorce, grief, depression, and tracked exactly what their dreaming minds did with that pain. She found that dreaming wasn't only simulating danger, it was processing it. People whose dreams directly confronted their waking distress, instead of avoiding it, tended to recover from emotional pain faster than people whose dreams stayed flat and emotionally distant. The simulation wasn't just a warning system, it was also where the feeling itself got worked through, safely, while the body had nowhere urgent to be. So dreaming wasn't only built to prepare you for danger, it was also built to help you survive the aftermath of it. You can even watch this system come online in real time, in your own childhood, if you look closely enough. A dream researcher named David Falk spent years recording dreams from children as young as 3 and tracking how those dreams changed with age. Toddlers barely dream about threat at all. Their dream worlds are mostly flat, simple, almost plotless. But as children grow older, start understanding risk, start recognizing that the world contains things that can genuinely hurt them. Their dreams fill up with monsters, falling, and being chased. The threat simulation doesn't switch on at birth. It switches on the moment a developing brain finally understands there's something worth simulating. Which means the dream you had last night about losing your job, or showing up late to something that mattered, or being followed down a street that didn't exist, isn't really about your job. It's older than your job. It's older than buildings, older than money, older than the idea of being on time for anything. It's a survival simulation your ancestors needed to outlast a world full of real predators, still quietly running tonight, on hardware built for a world that no longer exists. Here's where it gets stranger. Ancient humans almost certainly didn't dream about missed deadlines or a dead phone battery. They dreamed about exactly the threats surrounding them at the time. A predator moving through tall grass at dusk. A rival group near the edge of their territory. Hunger after a season that didn't go well. The brain doesn't invent threat content out of nowhere. It pulls from whatever danger is currently active in your environment and turns it into a rehearsal while the rest of your body lies still. So what actually changed over 100,000 years? The danger did. The system running underneath it never got the memo. You don't get hunted by anything with claws anymore. So your sleeping brain reaches for the closest modern substitute it can find. Being exposed in front of a crowd. Losing control in public. Failing at something everyone happens to be watching. To a dreaming brain, public humiliation lights up almost the exact same threat circuitry a predator once did. That's not a personality flaw. That's an evolutionary hand-me-down, still doing its job, just working off outdated intelligence. It's also why anxiety dreams almost never feel proportional to your actual life. You're not really failing a final exam. You haven't set foot in a classroom in years. But your brain doesn't distinguish between an ancient evolutionary threat and a modern social one. It only registers one thing. This feels dangerous. Simulate it. Get the body ready to respond. Look at almost any common modern dream and you can trace it backward to something older. Showing up late, even when nothing is actually at stake, taps into the same circuitry as being separated from a group that once meant the difference between protection and exposure. Losing your teeth taps into a deep, ancient marker of aging, illness, and declining ability to defend yourself. Being unable to run, no matter how hard you try, mirrors the exact paralysis your body would have needed to avoid during an actual predator encounter, except now there's no predator, just your alarm clock and an inbox. Even the modern dream of losing your phone, as oddly specific and recent as that sounds, plugs into the same ancient template of being cut off from your group with no way to call for help. Have you ever jolted awake from a falling dream with your heart slamming, like you genuinely almost died? That's not your imagination overreacting for no reason. Falling, especially from trees and cliffs, was one of the leading causes of death for early humans, particularly for the ones who slept up high to stay out of reach of ground predators. Your nervous system still remembers a danger your conscious mind has never personally faced even once. This is the part most people completely miss. You assume your dreams are about you. They're actually about every version of you that came before, handing down a kind of inherited muscle memory for fear that your conscious mind never agreed to keep. So the next time you wake up at 3 in the morning with your pulse racing from a dream that sounds almost embarrassing to say out loud in daylight, you're not broken, and you're not anxious for no reason. You are running a survival program that is roughly 100,000 years old, inside a body that no longer needs it for leopards but was never given the update to stop. Tonight, when you fall asleep, your brain is going to do exactly what it has done every single night for your entire species' existence. It will scan your life for whatever currently feels threatening, build a small private simulation out of it, and force you to live through that fear before it ever has the chance to actually happen. It will do this whether you live in a city of 10 million people or in a small camp lit only by firelight, because the system was never built around your address. It was built around your survival. You won't remember asking it to do that. You never had to ask. The truth is, it was never really a question of what you wanted to dream about tonight. It was always a question of what your ancestors needed you to survive.